Hey everyone, good morning. I'm going to go over a historiography essay on diplomatic history. It's titled Changing the Face of Diplomatic History, a literature review by Brenda Gale Plummer, as well as some supplementary information by Jeremy Black in his monograph, The History of Diplomacy. So what Plummer explains in this essay is the goal of diplomatic history is to measure power relations among nation states. However, she argues that the emergence of non-state actors and the need to understand cultural space has invited greater inclusion of a range of multidisciplinary studies that we're going to get into later. In this presentation, we're going to look at the evolution of the historiography of diplomatic history, shifting from the focus being on monolithic state actors to a scholarship that is far more inclusive and nuanced. The historiography surrounding diplomacy, for the most part, had been very antiquarian, and it focused solely on the relations between these monolithic state powers. There was very little room for any other considerations. It's what Jeremy Black labels as conventional diplomacy, or the competition between states for resources and the goal of serving the national interest. And this had been the tradition that persisted well into the 20th century. During and after the Cold War, many American historians were kind of locked into a binary worldview, something that was very East versus West, us versus them. This school of thought was incredibly nationalistic, and too often these American scholars gave into the myth of American exceptionalism. This prompted a lot of scholars from the New Left school of thought to challenge these American scholars, nationalistic scholars, to get out of the country and view the U.S. through the eyes of foreigners. But a lot had changed after the end of the Cold War. The emergence of non-state actors forced many historians as well as policymakers to really rethink their worldview. The volatile nature of these non-state actors, their ability to challenge the state system and to drive world events significantly shifted the conversation of diplomatic historians. Some scholars have argued that this sudden injection of confusion and uncertainty is what helped the historiography to evolve, in that non-state actors had eliminated the East-West conversation. It forced historians to examine a world where superpowers were no longer the sole proprietors of war. And as a consequence, the study of this new cultural space compelled historians to expand their methodologies into other areas. This cultural turn in world events saw the mobilization of ethnic and religious political objectives. The reaction among American historians was to examine contributing research to the field by non-historians, such as political scientists, security analysts, sociologists, as well as others. Modernization had been attacked by scholars who identified themselves as postmodernist. Their concern was to shift the focus away from bilateral nation states to civilian populations. And in that regard, postmodernism did help traditional diplomatic history to be less focused on the nation states and state archives and state papers, and begin exercising more innovative methodologies. One of the most significant changes in the historiography has been the feminist interpretation of diplomatic history. One that challenged prior research and that had failed to account for the previously concealed power dynamics between men and women. A lot of these feminist scholars as well have taken a linguistic turn by studying the nuances of language used in diplomacy. Colonialist studies have and continue to drive the conversation further. It links colonial practices to modernity, nationality, and citizenship. Anthropologists have also argued that their discipline can be used to understand how imperialist powers were able to control and subjugate other people. Race and foreign relations, this is something that's incredibly important. What this recent scholarship has done is recuperate a lot of previously lost history relating to transnational engagements with people of color. Globalization and modernization have also allowed scholars and policymakers to focus on areas linked to commerce, labor, and international cooperation. And that concludes this presentation on diplomatic history. I want to thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your summer.